Hello everyone and welcome back to Age of Nagash, which is a channel dedicated to Age of Sigmar. And in this video we're going to look at how to start a Legions of Nagash Death Army. So of course, if you didn't already have this army, then Nagash will be extremely annoyed with you and you'll reap your soul when you die and you'll never know what it's like to rest in peace. So now that we've moved on from the more serious matter, how do we start this army? Now, to begin with, you of course want to get your battle tome, as that's going to have obviously all your points for the army in it. It's also going to have all the battalions, going to have all the war scrolls, and then most importantly it's going to have your allegiance abilities. And the interesting thing about the Legions of Nagash army is it actually has 4 legions, and one of them is actually a grand host, but they're all the same. So the 4 allegiances within the Legions of Nagash are the Grand Host of Nagash, the Legion of Sacrament, the Legion of Blood, and the Legion of Night. Now you do also have, like, in this battle tome, you do also have like Soul Blight allegiances and like a generic Death Army allegiances in the battle tome as well, but that's not what this video is going to be about. This video is just going to be about the Legions of Nagash as a whole. So like I said, Grand Host of Nagash, Legion of Sacrament, Legion of Blood, and Legion of Night. I'm not planning on breaking down into each one of them and saying like this is how you start this legion opposed to the other legion, mainly because they are very similar. I mean, obviously there's differences in between them and there's play slightly differently on the table, but for collecting and like buying models and, you know, books and what have you, they are effectively near enough the same. I will talk about a few differences in between them, but that's something I might look to do in another video in the future, is to sort of break down the differences between them and how to steer towards each one of them, opposed to just essentially having a death army. Okay, so yeah, like I say, to start with, you want to get yourself that Legions of Nagash battle tome, as it's a really nice battle tome. Also, of course, you know me, I do like things like lore and narrative, and that is in the battle tome. There's plenty of it. And especially compared to what there was before this battle tome came out, death was very bleak. Essentially, you had the flesh-eater courts that had been, you know, fleshed out. No pun intended. But there wasn't really anything for any of the other death armies. I mean, there was the Grand Alliance death book, I think, came out. It's basically just a war scroll book that came out in the early stages of Age of Sigmar, which had a page of basically story detailing each part of death before you went into the war scrolls for each part of death in the book, which was very vague. You know, it was a little bit to go by, but I remember when I was trying to read through it when I was doing like my original death videos when I first started the channel, but there was like barely anything. I mean, I remember when I was trying to look through it for inspiration when I talked about the Deadwalkers, and there was, I think, maybe a page and a half of information I could sort of, you know, get inspiration from. But yeah, it was like Deadwalkers, for example, which is basically detailing and explaining zombies. But like I say, death has moved a long way since then, and Legions of Nagash after Flesh-Eater Courts was basically, I'd say, is the biggest step to evolving death, especially from fantasy into Age of Sigmar. So yes, that's the battle tome. Yeah, definitely recommend getting it. It's not too expensive either, and yeah, you can get the war scroll cards if you would like as well for the Legions of Nagash, but because they are not the war scroll cards for Age of Sigmar 0.2, I don't mean that they're out of date. I don't think they are, but they're just in the older format, so I bought them personally, and the writing on them is just a bit too small for how much space you have on the war scroll. You know, just how big space you have on basically the bit of card. Some of the writing literally only covers like half the card. It's just a big wasted empty space. Apart from Nagash, Nagash just quite effectively fill out the whole of his card. So maybe every single war scroll prior to 2nd edition was designed purely just because Nagash's one wouldn't fit on a card if the text was any bigger. Okay, so yeah, like I say, that's like a couple of extra things you can get there. So after you get the Legions of Nagash battle tome, you have a read through. Of course, that's all good, but really the exciting bit is what sort of models do you want to buy for your army? So the two best ways I can say about starting a Legions of Nagash army by far are you have two options, and this really is going to depend on what your budget is at the moment. So obviously some people have different budgets to others. You know, some people have more commitment, some people have different working backgrounds. You know, whatever. So the first one and the cheapest variation is going to be simply a start collecting box. You all know what they are. They're in the UK, they're £50. I don't know what they are in other currency, but they should all be the same price. So in the UK, like I say, £50, and in this box it's a very good value, as firstly you'll get yourself a Mortarch. Now on the box it does say it's Arcan the Black, but it can be any of the Mortarchs. Rest assured you can build any of the free kits from what comes in the Start Collecting box. Of course you can only build one of them, but don't worry, it doesn't have to be Arcan, it can be any of them. And if you want to build Arcan, he's great, so that's all good there. So yes, you get him. You also get 5 Black Knights and 10 Skeleton Warriors. So of course the 5 Black Knights can be turned into Hex Wraiths. What you might want to do, and I'm going to sort of park that and come back to Nighthorn in Legions of Nagash later. So like I say, you can make both of them out of that. So out of this kit, out of the, this big box, you get the Mortarch, which is £48 by themselves. So you're basically getting the Black Knights and the Skeleton Warriors for an extra £2, so £1 per unit. It's not bad, is it? So like I say, that's £48. The Black Knights are £20. The Skeleton Warriors are £15.50. So in total, that is £83.50, and you get that for £50. So obviously, that's a saving of £33.50. Which is, very good in itself, and it even just sounds better when it's like, why would you buy, a Mortarch separately when you can buy this box and essentially get a unit of Black Knights and a unit of Skeleton Warriors for an extra £2. So yeah, that's that. It is very good, and the reason why this fits in so well with the Legions of Nagash, and especially how this box set came out before the Legions of Nagash, Bastion came out and as an army came out, it's just so nicely fitting, because in the Legions of Nagash army you're going to want a lot of skeletons. Black Knights they're not essential in the army, but they are a lot better compared to what they used to be, so they can be a welcome addition to the army, especially as a scouting force. And then pinnacly, you're going to want to get yourself a Mortarch in the army. You don't have to if you go... well, to be honest, you don't have to have a Mortarch in your army at all. In Legions of Nagash, it's completely optional. Some armies are maybe better having like a Vampire Lord and a Zombie Dragon in the army instead of a Mortarch. It's your big centerpiece and big heavy hitter. But for me, the narrative really drives my armies. And if I have a Legions of Nagash army, I don't always, but I tend to always have a Mortarch in there, or if it's a Grand Host Nagash army, which, like I said, remember, is one of the allegiances within it. I will take Nagash generally if I'm taking a Grand Host Nagash army, because Nagash's army, it shouldn't be led by a Necromancer or something. And that's also where the rules come into it as well, because you may have let's say a Grand Host Nagash army, and in that army you can have any Mortarchs, any other heroes, as long as they can legally go in the army. But if Nagash is in the army, he has to be the general. So you might think, oh, well, if he's the general in the army, then I can't make the White King the general, or whatever you want to, a Vampire Lord, and give them the, command trait and all that sort of thing, and then that means I can't give, an artifact to my general, but you could give an artifact to someone else, to be fair. But you're missing out on a command trait, essentially. But you've got Nagash, he can more than enough make up for a lack of a command trait. He is incredibly good. In the new edition, he has got a chance of dying, because I don't know if it is impossible for him to have a 2-up save now, but I'm pretty sure it is, because Mystic Shield's changed. I don't think you have the 2-up save, because what he used to have is a 2-up save rerolled in one switch, and he had you could kit him out if you did it well and built the list with about 3 or 4 spells to make him heal himself. So yeah, that would seem to be a little bit overpowered, especially how, like, as an example, in my tournament experience, I took him to 3 tournaments, so like 15 tournament games, and he died once, and that was, to be fair, by a not smart move for myself, bit of a stupid move for myself. That killed him. So it was basically user error rather than the gash not being good enough. So yeah, essentially, you're missing out on a command trait, but it doesn't matter. So anyway, a long, rambling on, but the point is, if you've got Nagash in a Grand Host Nagash army, he's got to be the general. And then this is also reflected in the other legions. So Legions of Sacrament, for example, if you've got, you can have any Mortarks in the army, but if you've got Arcan in the army, he has to be the general because, it's the Legion of Sacrament. He is the Mortark of Sacrament. It just makes sense. And I think most people are happy with this. I don't think there's really any many people upset, but if they were upset, it's completely their own opinions. So that's fine. But I personally, for me, I really, when you are building some of this, it can be like, oh, I'm just annoyed if I take him, he has to be the general, and I can't take another Mortark or whatever to be the general instead of his Legion. But to be fair, I quite like that restriction because it almost forces you to take a narrative approach. And yeah, of course, you can just take maybe not the Legion of Sacrament allegiance. That might not be the best time to do it, but if you look at the Legion of Night or something, it might be best just to take a Vampalon Zombie Dragon instead of Manfred. But yeah, so like I said, you can take any Mortarks in like a Legion of Sacrament army as an example, but if Arcan's there, he has to be the general. And if you include, like any Mortarks, Arcan has to be included, so it's a sort of a one-trick deal, really. So if you include any Mortarks, Arcan has to be included, and if Arcan's included, he's the general. Again, I don't mean that in a bad way, I just mean it as a technicality. So you've got that, but you cannot include Nagash in these 3 other legions. So you include Nagash in a Grand Host Nagash army or a Grand Alliance Death army. We don't really talk about that because that's not really how you want to play Death right at the moment. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but for me, unless you're playing Tomb Kings and stuff, I don't really see what benefit it adds. So anyway, Legions of Nagash. Yeah, so within the Legions of Nagash, Nagash can only be in the Grand Host Nagash, which is, yeah, it feels like, it's a little bit annoying. There's like 4 allegiances within, the Legions of Nagash, and he can only be in one of them. But things with Nagash, when you include him in the army, for me anyway, I like to build basically the whole army around him. Basically having other units in the army that benefit him. So, you make him as good as you can because he's an 800-point model at the end of the day. So I wouldn't really want to just chuck him in another Legion, off Nagash army, because if he's not, fitted out to go into that army, I don't really see what benefit it had. And yeah, like the Legion of Sacrament, for example, there are like bonuses to Death Wizards, so you can get into it, but I think that's fair enough. So yeah, that's it with that one. So yeah, there's a few restrictions, and like I say, but you're going to want to have a Mortark, even if it's not for game reasons, because like I say, what tends to be the Vampire Zombie Dragon seems to be the go-to option with a lot of things. You might want him instead of a Mortark, but a Mortark for narrative reasons, you've got to have one. And plus, for me anyway, it's one of my favourite models in Age of Sigmar. If not my favourite, I think Neferata is potentially my favourite model. For Age of Sigmar, it is the model that got me back into Warhammer after I had a break. So for that alone, I love the Mortarks, and I've got all 3 of them. I do not have the 4th one, which is Lady Orlana, but I would like to get her, but she doesn't really fit the same scale as the other ones, and I completely understand why she doesn't, because she's not the same thing. But yeah, I don't know. To me anyway, I've got all the Mortarks. And yeah, I know you can just like magnetize them, and that's an Other thing I'll say about this kit, so with the Mortarch, he is easy enough to magnetize, especially if you can accept the Dread Abyssal itself being exactly the same. Like, I don't know, if you build Arcan's 1 as an example again, if you build his Dreaded Abyssal the same. Oh, actually, we won't use Arcan, we'll use Manfred, because I can remember what his ones is called. So if you build Manfred's Dread Abyssal, which is called a Shikaroth, if you build a Shikaroth and you just magnetize basically the seat on the back, and you put Manfred or Neferata on or Arcan on, whatever suits your fancy, whatever list you're trying to build, or whatever legion you're trying to fit it in, you can do it, and it can be a very cost-effective way, which is pretty easy. But for me, I would be annoyed, so it's definitely overthinking things, and it's taking it too seriously by a long shot. But I'm like, if it's Manfred's mount, which, like I say, is Shriekeroth, or Ashriekeroth, I think that's how you pronounce it, Neferata shouldn't be riding it, or Arcan shouldn't be riding it, and I know that really, really does not matter, and it costs me like an extra £50 each time just to make sure, buy another Start Collecting box to make sure the model looks right. I will do that. Yeah, it probably is a waste of money, to be fair, but like I say, I'm a big fan of the narrative, so I have to represent that in the game. Right, anyway, so that was a long talk and a long going off topic, stay on topic, conversation about the Mortarch, but I just wanted to give you my opinions of it. So yeah, you get that in this box, and that really is what this Start Collector box is all about. It's all about the Mortarch you get within it. So this box, again, it's arguably, well, I wouldn't even say it's one of the best Start Collector boxes going, purely in my own honest opinion, mainly because of just how expensive a Mortarch is by itself. But in this box, like I say, you pay an extra £2 for the extra 2 units, and even if you don't want the 10-man skeleton unit, or you don't want the 5 Black Knights, as I know myself, I already had like 120 skeletons, I think, or 100 painted up skeletons already before I bought my other 2 Mortarchs, being Arcan and Manfred. But like I just mentioned, I wanted to buy the other 2 to have a complete set of all 3 of them. I bought Start Collecting box because it's the most best value box, and I really didn't need the Black Knights, and I really didn't need the skeletons, but I bought the box anyway, because why wouldn't you? For an extra £2, you're getting those extra models. Even if you don't need the skeletons at a later date, you've got them, and skeletons are fantastic for putting on bases. You get all the skulls. I know you've got like that skull pack now, which is fantastic, but you get the rib cages, the legs, the arms, the broken swords, the broken shields, the helmets, all sort of plays into it, and it's definitely worth to buy. And Black Knights, I currently have 10 Black Knights at the moment, and unless I want to go really, really heavy on them, I don't think I need to build any more Black Knights. But by all means, as I don't really have much as a Nighthaunt army, the 10 Black Knight / Hex Wraiths I have sitting on sprue, I might turn into Hex Wraiths and use this Nighthaunt army. There's a multi-part kit, so they have multi-purposes there. So yeah, I think, like I said, this is one of the best value Start Collecting boxes. Definitely in terms of value, gameplay reasons, you're going to need the skeletons, but skeletons are the lowest part of this box. Black Knights, they are pretty good in Legions of Nagash, but there can be things that are better than them. And then the Mortarch, like I say, I feel like they're essential in Legions of Nagash, but technically not really at all. But if you really want to build your and theme your Legions of Nagash army, you really need that Mortarch. And the accompanying units, like I say, the Black Knights are pretty good in Legions of Nagash, and the Skeleton Warriors are essential Legions of Nagash. Like I said, the Black Knights aren't essential themselves, but that's mainly because you have so many different units to choose from in Legions of Nagash. It's not that the Black Knights aren't good, it's just that something else might fit your list or your army more effective to basically perform the task that list is meant to do. I don't know, if you play against a I don't know, as each army, and you really want to go heavy on the magic side to try and counter their spells and wizards and really try and compete with them, you might not. You might get to the end of building your list and you've got uh, let's say about 100 and 40 points left, 120 points, whatever it may be, and you might choose to put a corpse cart in there and not the Black Knights just to give your army a bit of a boost against the Zeech magic. So that's just an example there of Black Knights don't fit everything, but they are good. They are very good light cavalry. Yeah, I say light cavalry, and they are really a heavy cavalry unit, and especially in fantasy, they were a heavy cavalry unit. But compared to what you have these days, I mean, you put even just like not even to do with rules, but you just put a Black Knight model next to a the new Dracoline models that are coming out, or a Vanguard model, or a Gore Grunter, or a a Mornfang, Pack Rider, or a Dracoff Rider. You put them next to any of those mounts, the Black Knight's just going to look tiny. So they're not really heavy cavalry anymore. I suppose they are traditional heavy cavalry, yeah, but they're not monstrous in any way, shape, and form. Even that they may appear to be monstrous because they are undead cavalry marching across the battlefield. So the reason also why they're not super heavy is because they are fast, which is obviously a good thing. They can be summoned from grave sites and stuff like that as well. So they are they can be very quick and very movable, and they can be very survivable with the summoning mechanic. So, anyways, that's a bit of talk about those units there, and then skeletons. Yeah, they're a foundation for most Legions of Nagash army. They don't have to be by any stretch. You can go, depending on what you're going for. You're going Grand Host Nagash, for example. You can opt to go for Graveguard instead, which I do. I know some people think that skeletons do a much better job than Graveguard because you get, two for the price of one Graveguard, basically. And yeah, to a point they are right. Yeah, skeletons are probably overall better. But for me, if it's for me anyway, and that's basically all this is my opinion. But Graveguard, when they're really, really buffed up and really, really, you've put a lot of focus into making them really good in the game by giving them extra attacks from command abilities and using a command trait, a Lord Nagash gives them another attack. And they can have loads of attacks now, especially with command points, being able to use command abilities multiple times. They can do so much damage, it's almost insane. But of course, if they get hit first, they can take so many more casualties, and then their hitting power really is reduced. That skeletons at the end of the day might have survived the impact that hit the grave guard, because there's essentially just more skeletons, which is true. But for me anyway, I've spent enough time pushing around like 100 skeletons across the board, all that sort of thing, and I have done it with movement trays in the past and not movement trays in the past, and in all honesty, it's not fun. They do look awesome on the table, especially they're all painted, ranked up skeletons with spears and swords, whatever you have. They do look fantastic. It's one of my favourite statics, a huge blocks of like 3 big blocks of what I've done, like 40 skeletons moving across the table. It does, it looks awesome in all honesty, but it's not the funnest thing to move at all, to be quite frank. You spend a long time doing it, you don't enjoy doing it. I don't enjoy doing it personally. Your opponent, I'm sure they're understandable and stuff, they don't really want to spend ages watching you move models across the board. And yes, you can use movement trays, like I said, I've used them in the past. But for me, I find, I don't know if it's just my store and there's quite a bit of scenery on the boards, but you get to a bit of scenery and then you have to take everything off, and it probably still is quicker and it's probably still the best way to do it, but for me, it's still faffing around. So I like to take Graveguard because you can take, half of them, or you can take, 60 instead of 120 skeletons. That's a bit obsessive. I'll probably take, a unit of 30, but Yeah, it's 30 miles moving across the board opposed to, let's say, 100. So yeah, that's why I like them, and for me they look cooler as well. They've got all the big armor, they've got the bigger helmets, they've got the I've given mine like one cast iron shields as well, just to make them a bit more different, and again, so they're like the personal guard of Manfred. So there's a bit of connection there. When I take a Legion of the Night Army, I'll take Manfred and I'll take them. They're not going to keep up with Manfred on this Mortark, but any stretch to the imagination. But they're his bodyguard, and it's quite cool. So that's my personal opinion on them. And then if we're going to talk about Battle Iron, might as well talk about it now. You also have you have Crypt Ghouls as well. But in a Legions of Nagash army, they can only be taken as allies, so they won't count as Battle Iron. You have Chain Rasp Hordes, which a lot of people have told me these things are amazing. Now, in a Nighthorn army, I can definitely see how really, really good they are. And in Legions of Nagash army, I can see that they are good. But in a Legions of Nagash army, I still definitely see skeletons as being the best. Yes, Chain Rasp Hordes are definitely better off the bat compared to skeletons. No doubt about that at all. But skeletons, when they're in bigger numbers, are, in my opinion, a lot better than Chain Rasp. They will get a lot more attacks. Chain Rasp, if they've got a certain amount of models in their unit, if they have 10 or more models, they reroll wound rolls of 1. But if you have a Vampire Lord and Zombie Dragon, you can make a block of skeletons reroll failed hit rolls, or you could do it on the Chain Rasp as well. But you know what I mean. I think the skeletons, like when they're in a block of 40, they'll be making a hell of a lot of attacks and a lot more than the Chain Rasp Hordes. And yeah, I mean they're slower than Chain Rasp Hordes. They're only 4 inches composed to 6. Their save is not nearly as good as the Chain Rasp. The Chain Rasp have a 5+ save, and it can't be modified in any way, shape, or form. So they're really, really tough and really hard to get rid of. They're summonable like skeletons, so they're just as easy to reinforce and bring back to life. So yeah, to be honest, skeletons. I personally think they are better. They're my preferred choice, probably because I have more skeletons than Chain Rasp Hordes, and that's why I'd prefer them. But they play different things. I'd say skeletons are definitely more offensive, while Chain Rasps are more defensive. You can make Chain Rasp Hordes probably as offenses of skeletons with command abilities, giving them more attacks and stuff. But while you're mucking around doing that, your skeletons could just be like that because they're in a bigger block. Then again, like I say, skeletons aren't as durable, so when they get knocked down from a unit of 40 to a unit of 20, that'll be easier to do to the skeletons rather than the Chain Rasps. And when they both get down to the same model unit, like I'd say, if they have a unit of 20 each at that stage, or let's say even like a unit of 10, the Chain Rasps are definitely going to be a lot better. Of course the Chain Rasps, I can't remember how many more points they are, but I believe they're more points than Skeleton Warriors anyway, so there's that to consider as well. But they might be better in the future, and they might be better now. If you think so, like I say, let me know in the comments. But I think they're mainly for a Nighthorn army. I think that's what they're designed for. Feel free to use them in a Legions of Nagash army, but they're really going to succeed in a Nighthorn army, and I think that's where they are going to really specialise in. Right, okay, so the last battle line unit is going to be the Direwolves. Now, these are really sort of probably the underdog heroes of the Legions of Nagash army, and not just Legions of Nagash, just Death in general, because Direwolves for 60 points are really, really, really solid, and I think they should definitely be made more, probably like 80 points, but I'll never say that personally, because I think they're really good, and they should be kept at 60 points, because they're just lovely. For 60 points, firstly, you can't really complain if it does absolutely diabolically shit, because you think, hey, well, I haven't really lost much. Maybe, I don't know, a command point, or you could have fitted in something else. weak and maybe slightly more pathetic instead. But Direwolves are, like I say, some people do take them in huge big blocks, and they could be quite good in, like, big blocks of 15 and 20, and I think some people maybe even take them in. What's the max you can take them? 30 or something, I think some people have done. But for me, I take them in groups of 5, and that's purely because I have 6, and I can only take 5, so one of them will never see the table, unfortunately. But my unit of 5 has done so much work and has earned its keeps every time I field it in a game, even if it's just holding an objective in the back of your territory, or taking one of the enemy's objectives on their flank in their territory. Because it's a 60-point unit, and like I say, if it can hold an objective, which you might have put, like 20 or, I don't know, 40 skeletons on an objective to hold it, this 5, doggy man unit is doing exactly the same job, and for a hell of a lot cheaper. Like there was one game where I went to a tournament, and I had very, very, very few models in this list. I literally had the biggest unit I had in this list was a unit of 5 Direwolves, and it got to a point where I only had 3 units left on the board, and that was Nagash, a Vampire Lord and Zombie Dragon, and 5 Direwolves. And I needed 2 of those models to hold 2 objectives, so 1 each. I wasn't going to use Nagash to hold an objective because he needed to go off and start destroying the enemy and their objectives. So the 2 models I had to leave behind to hold objectives was a Vampire Lord and Zombie Dragon, which wasn't under attack, but it just had to stay on an objective, and 5 Direwolves. So they're both doing the same job. However, the 5 Direwolves cost me 60 points, and the Vampire Lord and Zombie Dragon cost me 440 points, and the only difference is the Vampire and Zombie Dragon was a little bit more scary for the enemy to try and take it off. But the enemy didn't, really manage to do that anyway with that, and the model literally just sat there for like 3 turns, just wasting its points. So there's a comparison there. And then if you look at the stats for the Direwolves, I have done a video on the Deadwalker stuff, so I've done a video on the Direwolves talking about their War Scroll and stuff. I don't believe it's changed since I did that video, so feel free to check that one out with the Deadwalkers. And also I've done videos for the Death Rattle as well. So when I was talking earlier about the skeletons and Graveguard and Black Knights, feel free to check out that video as well to get a bit more in-depth information on them. So anyway, back to Direwolves. Off the top of my head, their stats are they have 2 wounds each, they move 10 inches, they have a 5-up save and bravery 10, they have 2 attacks each, range 1 inch, hits on a 4, wounds on a 3, no rend, 1 damage, and then the leader of the unit is called Doomwolf, which I think is probably the most scariest name that Games Workshop could have came up with, and it's probably a very ancient name indeed, and they couldn't be bothered to change it. So that's that, and then what is really fantastic to start off is a 60-point model, and 60-point 5-man unit. They've got 2 wounds each. They've got a 10-inch movement, so they're fast, extremely fast for the majority of death. And they have a 5-up save, and that's a 5-up save. And if there's a one of your heroes nearby, they will get that 6-up death save. So if you can do that, it's like, and it's not that hard to do either. So that's a 5-up save plus a 6-up save for a 60-point model unit, which is summonable, so you can bring back the models as well, which just makes it even better. And then, as you can imagine, they're not going to have that many abilities, for their points and stuff, but they've got a couple of abilities, and one of them is add 1 to wound rolls. They make a successful charge, so that is each model's making 2 attacks, so apart from Doomwolf, obviously, he's making 3. Hit on 4s, and then in this case, wound on 3s, no rend, 1 damage. So yeah, that's not a bad stat line at all, really, for that. And then as a bonus, if you've got a corpse cart on the table, and these guys are, within 9 inches of the corpse cart, and doesn't have to be holding within 9, it's just 9 inches, so that's nice. You can definitely tag a model in there. Add 1 to save rolls for the unit. So then that Direwolves unit will have a 4-up save. And if it's within range of your death heroes, like I say, it'll get the death save as well. So that's a 4 plus a 6. So some people really do go all out with Direwolves, and they make massive units of, like I say, 20 and so on. But even if you just take units of 5, like I do, they are really, really earn their money back, and they have to do something really disastrous to make them not worth taking. When you get to the end of the match and you think, well, that didn't really do well for how many points it cost me this game. You go through and you think, God, that monster I took didn't really earn its keep. These Direwolves will generally always earn their keep. And of course, there's going to be some lists you build and you think, I just don't have any points, and Direwolves are the last thing I'm thinking of, which is true. But if you've got like 60 points left over and you're not really bothered about trying to get one of those triumphs, which can be good to get, but let's say you're not bothered about getting them, basically for having less points than the enemy, and you're not really too bothered about getting that extra command point for having 50 points less than the point limit of the game you're playing. So, like I say, those two things there, triumphs and those getting the extra command point, are quite big things. So we shouldn't just, look at that lightly. But let's say you would rather have more models on the board, for argument's sake. Direwolves are a really, really good shout. And the other thing, I can think of 60 points in the army that's really good, is a Khan Wraith. But Direwolves are absolutely fantastic, in my honest opinion. So, let's look away from battle line units now. So I have talked about them for quite a while. Like I said, if you want a more in-depth opinion on them, then you can look at my previous videos I've done for, Death Rattle and Deadwalkers, in this case for the Direwolves. And, of course, you do also have the zombies, but for me personally, zombies are just, why take zombies when you can take, like Skeleton Warriors? There's not that much difference in price, in, points between them. Skeleton Warriors do a better job. Skeleton Warriors have a lot nicer models than zombies. The zombie models from Games Workshop currently are pretty goddamn horrific. Of course, you can kit bash your own, or you can take ones from other companies, but I'm not really a big fan of that. So if you kit bash your own, it can be done. I've seen some people try and do White Walker armies, from Game of Thrones, of course. I haven't seen an army of that. I've seen some people try and do a couple of test models and realize it's going to cost so much money to do this conversion for models that really are not really worth that much in the game and will be dying and coming back every single second, that they're not really worth putting in all that effort. And then also with zombies, this is what I say, they're 10 models. They cost 60 points. 5 Direwolves, which I've just been talking about, cost 60 points. Yep. You have twice as many models as the Direwolves, but the Direwolves have double the wounds, so 2 wounds opposed to 1. So that sort of cancels that bit out a little bit. They have a better save. They have much better movement. They have better attack characteristics. Of course, the zombies in bigger blocks can come down to getting better to hit and to wound characteristics. But you need to have a lot of them, and they need to not die, which is going to be hard at the best of times, in all honesty. They're just too low down the ladder for me personally. They might be really quite good, you might really like them, but for me, they're just not worth it. They're just a bit too rubbish, in my opinion. Some of you guys might like zombies a lot and think they're fantastic, and that's absolutely great. That's up to you, but for me, nah, not really a big fan. Like I say, they're a bit too not very good. If you need to fit in a battle line unit, though, you only got 60 points. Of course, just don't get the zombies and get the Direwolves. That's my own honest opinion. And in all fairness, I haven't really played that much with zombies in the game. I've used them a few times from some old models I had, but they're just... There's better things to take, I think, in all honesty. Hopefully, though, they will get a re-release because, as for example, I watched The Walking Dead. I think zombies are pretty cool. Not in a real-life scenario, as that would generally scare the living daylights out of me. But it's quite, it's a fear, isn't it? You fear the horde. You don't fear each individual zombie. You fear the horde of them, and that can really terrify you. So implementing that in the game is or something that is implemented in the rules and stuff, but hopefully they will get some better models to represent just how terrifying zombies can be, and maybe up the rules a little bit on them. I would be happy for them to go from a 60-point, 10-man model unit to a 80-point 10-man model unit, whatever. I'm happy for them to go up in points and make them just a little bit more worth taking, in my opinion. So now I believe I talked about all the battle line units for Legions of Nagash, which has quite a few and has gone on for longer than I thought it would. But I thought it would be nice to give a bit of an oversight to what you can put into your army. So going back to what I originally started talking about, what was the Start Collecting box quite a few minutes ago. Yeah, hopefully I've basically told you guys why this box is very good and definitely, in all honesty, worth its price. So the second box we're going to talk about is the Battle Force box, and this is the Blade of the Blood Queen. Now it's a Battle Force box, so it's going to be similar to the third box I'm going to talk about after this. That it might not be around forever. It might be around for a considerable amount of time. It might be gone in 2 days' time, so you don't know. But I think it will be around for a little while because there's been quite a few kicking around in stores lately and stuff. So the Battle Force box, Blade of the Blood Queen, and this essentially is a bigger, nastier version of the Start Collecting box. So basically an awesome version of it. So similar to it, you have a Mortarch. So I've told you why it's good to get one of those in them. And in this, it shows Neferata. Now, it shows Neferata because it's the Blade of the Blood Queen. She's the Blood Queen. She's the Mortarch of Blood. She's the leader of the Legions of the Blood. You see a bit of a theme developing here. So, she's on the front of the box. Like I said with Arcan, with Neferata here, you can build any single one of those Mortarchs you like. So again, do not worry about that. Now, what you also get in this box is your second hero, which is a White King, which I think quite a few Death players can agree with me, is a very sort of homely sort of model in a Death army. The White King, especially now how you can use the how he doesn't have to be your general to use his command ability now. That's just particularly good with the Death Rattle. When I mean the Death Rattle, I mean precisely the Death Rattle, because I can't be using anything else, which is to give them an extra attack. The White King, he's a bit of a, like I say, he's quite a homely model because I personally quite like the model as well. It was my first hero for a Death army, so I'm always going to be a bit biased about him. But why have him in the army when you can have a Vampire Lord in the army? Because the Vampire Lord, let's say the White King and the Vampire Lord are both mounted. And they both move 10 inches. So they're both fast. The White King is 20 points less. And we're going to be talking about specifically the White King with the Tomb Blade, because that's the one you get in the box. So, like I say, it can be mounted on a horse, both 10-inch movement, that and the Vampire Lord. But for an extra 20 points, the Vampire Lord is a wizard. It has a chalice that lets it heal d6 wounds in your hero phase once per game. It has better attacks. Because the White King's spell for Tomb Blade attacks are pretty pathetic, in all honesty. And, the Vampire Lord has a better, Deathly Invocation ability. And like I say, it's a spellcaster. Its command ability, I would say, is better. It's got less range than the White King's command ability, but it lets you +1 attack to a death unit within 10 inches, I believe, of it. Opposed to the White King, that is 18 inches, but the White King is, pick a death rattle unit within 18 inches, so you're more limited. Again, I'm making it sound like the White King's not very good here. He is good, it's just a Vampire Lord maybe is a better option, but he is definitely a nice model to have. It's a fantastic model. I really am a big fan of it. But unfortunately, the White King used to be very good back in the first General's Handbook, I think, or probably just before the Legions of Nagash Battletome came out, to be honest, where you'd be given the Infernal Banner, which I'm not going to go into loads about it. My original Death Rattle video did talk about the banner, so if you really want to go back at that, you can look at that. But it essentially was a really, really good buff to your whole army that was in range of it, and made the White King almost a staple in Death Rattle armies. Death Rattle heavy armies, if you like, if not a must in those armies. So unfortunately, as that's changed, the need for a White King has dropped considerably. But as always, he is a nice model. You don't have to use him, but there's going to be times where you only have 120 points to spend on a model like a Vampire Lord, and of course that's not enough points to acquire a Vampire Lord with, so you might have to go for a White King instead. A bonus the White King has over a Vampire Lord is his save is better. It's a 3-up save opposed to a 4-up save, but the Vampire Lord has got very good healing mechanics. So it's not the best hero in Death at the moment, but he's a pretty cool model, and in smaller point games, it's probably used for him in there. So we move on to what else you get in this box, and you get 20 Skeleton Warriors. I've gone through Skeleton Warriors. Like I say, you're going to want Skeleton Warriors in a Legions of Nagash army. You get 20 here opposed to 10 that was in that start collecting box. So, all the better. You do also get 10 Graveguard, and I've been through Graveguard, so I won't go through them again. But like I say, if you want to appear in depth, talks about the Death Rattle, you always can more than welcome to go back to that video. I just don't really want to talk about them too much in this because I've already talked about them a bit and the video's going on for a while. So these Graveguard are, like I say, they're good in a Grand Host in the Nagash army. You're gonna want them. Myself personally, I know some people think Skeleton Warriors are better, but me personally, I like to have Graveguard, and I think they look very cool. And it's a unit where, let's say you already have 10, you've already bought a box, and you think, oh, if I buy this Battle Force box and get 10 more of those, and I've already got 10, don't really need to field more than that. They are very good if you field more than 10, even if you field 15. 20 is particularly good if you can field 30. The regimental discount you get on it is huge, so it's definitely a good one there. And then the third and probably the most exciting unit you get in this, apart from the Mortarch, is a real cookie jar unit for the Legions of Nagash, and that is, of course, the Morghast. Now, so there's two different types of Morghast. You've got the Morghast Archai, and you've got the Morghast Harbingers. So, my favourite are the Morghast Archai. There's differences between the Morghast Archai and the Morghast Harbingers, which people say one's better than the other, which I don't know which one's the best one, but for me personally, I go for aesthetics. And the Morghast Archai are the ones with the armor and the helmets and stuff. And just in case you guys don't know what Morghast Archai are, there will be the picture of them on the screen as you can see it right now. But they are basically, Morghast are the big skeletal dudes with wings with huge spiritual glaives or swords. So now you know what the Morghasts are. The reasons I like the Archives, like I say, the big armor and stuff, it just, me personally, it makes them look a lot cooler than the Harbingers. But what the Archive get is a 5-up mortal wound save against mortal wounds, funny enough, basically a ward save, opposed to what the Harbingers get, which is a 3d6 charge instead of a 2d6 charge. Now, off the bat, the 3d6 charge does sound a lot better than having a 5-up mortal wound save. However, I've played against a lot of Leech armies and stuff in tournaments, and a lot of armies that are basically capable of delivering lots and lots and lots of mortal wounds, and they tend to pick on my unit of 4 Morghasts, which is I think is quite nasty. There's only 4 of them, they're not that bad. Leave them the fuck alone. But the enemy does not do that, and they like to tear them apart as easily and quickly as they can from range, and Skyfires are particularly good at doing this. So the mortal wound save is particularly good, especially when, for example, when I fought against Zeech in a tournament, and I had Morghast Harbingers, I was bringing for that because I wanted to basically always near enough get my charge in. Because as long as you can succeed in the charge, you can activate that unit first generally, and you can do your damage before the enemy can take, in this case, 1 or 2 Morghasts out. So, in this scenario, against each player, was going to charge Kairos Fate Weaver, and I went to charge. I was 4 inches away, and I had 3 to 6 charge, so I thought, well, this is in the bag. So I rolled the dice. I got 2 1s and then a 6, so I was charging 8 inches, so more than enough. However, Kairos Fate Weaver is a tricksy little fella, and he had an ability that could change my 6 into a 1, and as I was 4 inches away from him, my charge ended up being a 3 instead of an 8, because he changed the 6 to a 1, and then I failed the charge. And then I took so many mortal wounds in the next hero phase from the enemy magic, and Skyfires in the shooting phase. My Morghast were basically none more, and I think I had like 1 left at that stage. Was a real big disappointment, and yes, that was a very unlucky. I rolled 2 1s for my other 2 dice in the charge, which is very true, very unlucky. And it's only Kai's Fate. Well, I don't know if it is only Kai's Fate Weaver, but he's the one I can think about at the moment that can modify enemy dice rolls. But it was just frustrating. I know that's unlucky, and it's not typically how luck should be in the game, but I don't think there really is any way luck should be in the game. But for me, I prefer the armor. It's more reliable. You know what you're always getting. So, like I say, Harbingers are probably better, but for me, Archive are definitely a way to go forward, and aesthetics alone, 100%. And then you can equip them 2 different ways with their weapons. You can basically give them the twin swords and the big glaives. Not going to break down onto all their stats now, but for me, the glaives look a lot cooler, and I think they do more damage in the game, particularly as I use the Morghast against enemy elite units that tend to have better saves, and then the big glaives have -2 rend, so they are very good at punching through the armor. Now, we've talked about the Morghast, and the only other thing I'll say is that in a grand host of Nagash army, they will be your battle line if you have Nagash as your general. So if you include Nagash in your army, he has to be your general in the grand host of Nagash army. And then these guys are automatically your battle line. So that's a nice turn of events. And yes, I have done that before. I've had a 4-man unit this as my battle line unit. I have been called not very nice things from my opponents for doing that, but fuck them, I won the game. So that's a bit arrogant. But what I mean is that it is really, really fun from your side of the table. Just don't do it too many times. But in tournaments where that's why I take these guys, I wouldn't take it in my locals though. I like in tournaments. They are very, very good, and they're not gonna do what a 4C skeletons can do. They play different roles, but to have one of your monstrous units, your heavy hitters, as to fill in one of your battle line slots can be very good. So that's what I use them for. Right, so that is the Blade of the Blood Queen Battle Force box. Like I said, it might not be around forever. It is £100. It is double the price of the Start Collecting box. But in all honesty, I think it is a better way to start your army. Start Collecting box is fantastic. And it is one of those things you can do multiple purchases of the Start Collecting box, because you can have 3 of the Mortarks in total. But you might be fed up just getting your Skeleton Warriors and your Black Knights as on top of the Mortarks. So in the Battle Force box, like I said, Blade of the Blood Queen, there are certain things like the White King. If you buy multiple of these boxes, you're not really going to need more than one of him. You might find ways why you would need more than one, and if you can, that's good. But for me, one's enough. The Mortarks again, if you buy more than 3 of these boxes, you're going to be sort of wasting that 4th Mortark kit unless you want to do a conversion. But to be honest, these boxes cost £100. I don't think you're going to be buying more than 3 of them. You may want to, and if you really do, that's up to you. But I think your money probably is going to be better spent elsewhere. But let's take your skeletons for example. You get 20 every time this box. You're always going to want to have as many of those as you can. Your Graveguard, like I said earlier, more the merrier. And then your Morghast, you get 2 in this box. They might seem like quite a lot because they're quite big models, but for me, I don't really like taking a unit of 2. They can get wiped out pretty quickly. Like I say, especially from range, depending on what armies you're up against. And I think a unit of 4 is really, really good. It's really devastating. It's very effective. It tends to always be worth its points. What I want to maybe play about in the future, I've got 2 Morghast in a box that I will plan to build at some point, is to turn my unit of 4 into a unit of 6. That's going to be a hell of a lot of points concentrated in one unit, and that can only go to one area of the board at a time. I understand that, so that's a lot of points invested into one thing. That can only be in any one place, but whatever that comes across is going to be absolutely destroyed unless they've got some sort of sneaky mechanic, because I think I've explained this before, but it basically makes that unit a really incredible, nasty monster. It's a 660 point unit, like I say, very expensive, a unit of 6 of these, but that would be in a Grand Host Nagash army. They get an extra attack Morghast because, you know, they are the bodyguard of Nagash, why not? So at that point, they're making, with these glaives, 4 attacks each. 4 attacks each. Let's say Nagash is in the army. They're rerolling hit rolls 1 because of Nagash's command ability. So that's 4 attacks each. So there's 6 of them. So that's going to be, you know, let's just say 24 attacks. Hit it on freeze, rerolling 1s because of Nagash's command ability. Wounded on freeze, -2 rend, 3 damage. 24 attacks. So whatever enemy comes across that, doesn't matter if they're Stormcaster or I've got a top shave re-rolling 1, that does not matter. They will probably die, and that might be capable of killing the Star Drake. Now, how I look at it as, if there was a 660 point monster in an army, you know, to choose from, so in a battle tome, whatever, when you're picking how to build your list, 660 point monster, that's a very expensive monster. You're looking at basically just shy of Archaon. Or it actually might be more line Archaon's points if he came down New Edition, I'm not too sure, but you know, that sort of level. So yeah, like I say, it's very expensive. But a 660 point monster that has a 4 save, so that's respectable. Has a 9-inch movement, you know, it's respectable. Has a death save, it's in range of the enemy. Yep. Makes the enemy -1 bravery. Yep. But where the magic really lies is the fact that this monster has 24 attacks that hit on freeze, wound on freeze, and range, you know, 2 as well, so that's good, and do 3 damage each. That's 24 attacks that do 3 damage each. If any army had that monster, I'm sure most people would say, well, fuck that, I'm taking that every day of the week, you know, because that sounds insane. Now, in theory, like I say, for me anyway, you might be thinking that this really is not a practical idea and it's not really going to work as well you think. But for me personally, I really want to try that out. It's going to be a big footprint on the board and it's going to be hard to move around. I understand that, especially the sort of scenery and terrain. But if you can make it work, oh my god, that was just going to destroy everything. Like I said, with that range 2-inch on their glaives, should make it that most of them will be able to attack all the time. And then, like I said, you're comparing it to a monster. Obviously, there's a wounds table on a monster, isn't there? When it takes a certain amount of wounds, you know, its attacks get weaker. So a unit of 6 of these guys, you know, they have 6 wounds each. So it's a 36 wound monster. You know, just one of your average day monsters, really. And every time one of these models die in the unit, it's like the monster losing 6 wounds. And when it loses 6 wounds, so one of these models die, you lose 4 attacks. Which, if you look at, you know, the damage chart on a monster, you know, like when it suffers wounds, I think that works out. You know, you're comparing this to a monster. Every time it loses 6 wounds, it suffers. Well, you know, it loses 4 attacks. Yeah, I'll tell you that. That's not too bad, considering it starts with 24 bloody attacks. So yeah, it's something I really want to try out, and it could be a really, really interesting way. And of course, that's not really going to be where you want to start the army, which this video is about, but it's something you could maybe build towards. I don't know. I'll have to try it out and let you guys know how well it does. I understand the biggest problem with it is it's going to be its footprint and all your points into one thing, and you can only be in one area of the board to deal with things at a time. Can't be everywhere, but I really want to try it out because I think it'd be really, really tough and really hard to get rid of. Right, okay, so like I say, that concludes this box. If I'm comparing it to Start Collecting box, depends on budget. If you are literally just starting out and this is your first purchase, I would say, and let's, for all arguments, let's just say it's your first investment into Age of Sigmar or Warhammer as a general, I would get the Start Collector box. Don't worry about the Blade of the Blood Queen box. because the start collector box is half the price. You're going to want to buy paints and your clippers and all that sort of thing as well, and glue, and you're going to want to buy the battle tome. And same, like I say, if you're brand new to Warhammer, you're coming in, you're starting with this, go with that. Also, if you're starting Death as your this first time going to Death, and you want Legions of Nagash, and you have a limited budget, let's say, you don't want to get carried away, which is absolutely fine. Get the start collecting box as well, and the battle tome, because that's in Britain anyway. That's going to cost you £75, which is a respectable bit of money by itself, and the models will keep you busy for a while with building and painting them. Then on the flip side of that, if you want to invest a bit more into your starting a Legions of Nagash army, I would say if you've got the money, the Battle Force Blade for the Blood Queen is gonna be a better choice. Just because I feel like I don't know if it's even works out to be a better discount than the start collecting box, but just because of the models you get now, I really think it's worth it. In all honesty. So there is also a third box, and the reason I haven't really talked about this one too much, and I didn't mention it at the start of the video, it's just because it might not be there forever. It could just be a temporary one, because it was one of the ally boxes that came in when the second General's Handbook came in, so quite a while ago, and that just means it, like I say, might not be here forever. So don't want to talk about it too much, but in case it is, and you're looking at starting an army recently, so it will still be around, that is the Death Rattle Burrow Lords box. Now this is the going to be the cheapest option for £40. It gets you your Black Knights, so 5 Black Knights, 10 Graveguard, and a White King. So in all honesty, it's a very nice starter box, and if you're into the cool theme and aesthetic of it, and the narrative side is quite cool. You've got the Graveguard, the guard of this White King, and then you have his Black Knights. It's quite like even just looking at it, as there'll be a picture on your screen now, it's just got a nice sort of theme to it. It's like, it feels like quite a nice full small contingency force that's being sent out from a vampire keep to reinforce an area on the front line, or to go take a settlement for like I say, that vampire, or Mortark, whoever this White King is serving. It's like his elite guards, which I quite like that. So yeah, like I say, it's the cheapest of the lot. What you get is, obviously, you get your White King, which is he's a cheap model. He's only £9. You get your Black Knights, which, like I said earlier, they're £20. That's £29. And then your Graveguard at £25.50. So that is £54.50. I believe that comes to a total of, which £54.50 is £14.50 saving, which might not be as big as a saving as the start collecting box, but this hasn't got Mortark in it. It hasn't got that. It's a, like I said, £14.50 saving on a box that's only costing you £40. So basically a £54.50 box down to £40. Quite a nice discount there. And also, it's one of those boxes where apart from the White King, maybe you could potentially buy multiples off, because you might want to get quite a few Black Knights. So I think a big unit of Black Knights could be particularly good to use, instead of just taking a unit of 5, which most people do as a scouting force to harass enemy objectives. A big unit of them on the charge could potentially do a lot of damage, depending on what they're up against. If they're up against something with not a really good save, they do damage 2 on the charge of their lances, so that can hurt a lot. So yeah, it's a box that you could buy more multiples off compared to the other boxes, I'd say, unless you really wanted to collect all the Mortarks and start collecting box. So yeah, I'd say that's a nice option, and like I say, it's a cheap option as well. So if you're let's say obviously if you've got a smaller budget and stuff, it could be better for you. But let's say you've already started the Legions of Nagash army, and you've got say you want to enforce it a little bit, and you want to go for Death Rattle, and I don't know, it's for argument's sake, you've said you've already got enough skeleton warriors, so you just can't be bothered to build and paint them. anything, I want to go for a bit more, something a bit more tougher. Buying this box is a really nice way to expand that army. So, those are really the best ways to start Legions of Nagash, and in particular with the Death Rattle. Of course, you can do things like the start collecting Malignant box set for Legions of Nagash, as it will give you your, it gives you 3 Spirit Hosts, it gives you 5 Hex Race, which again, these Hex Race can be turned into Black Knights, and then your Mortis Engine, which can be a Covenant Throne or a Bloodseeker Palanquin, which is one of the new War Scrolls that came out in the Legions of Nagash. So yeah, it's got a few multiple uses, but personally for me, I feel like Nighthaunt really sort of belongs its units in a Nighthaunt Legion. It can work in Legions of Nagash, and I'm not saying it doesn't. People probably succeed very well with it, but for me, I feel like it really belongs in that. But that aside, even if you just use your Spirit Host for a Nighthaunt army, you're building that up as well, or you just use them for what I really like to do with basing. Like for example, with my Arcan, I've got I literally bought I had a Spirit Host model, and I just basically ripped the Spirit Host of it, took them apart, and then put them onto his base to make it look like he's had such a big presence in death magic that he's just summoning these spirits from the grave, and that's what I did with him. So they can be very nicely used for basing. And the Mortis Engine is particularly good in the game. I'm not too sure about the Covenant Throne and the Bloodseeker Palanquin. Aesthetically, yeah, they fit in really well, especially again for a heavy vampire army like Legion of Blood, for example. Can fit in very nicely there. And the kit is fantastic. And if you go for, a Covenant Throne, for example, you're getting a lot of I think you get 3 Banshees you can take apart and put into a Nighthaunt army, from what would usually be from the Mortis Engine. So you get lots of leftover bits that can be good. Alternatively, you build the Mortis Engine. This just shows how good of a kit is. You build the Mortis Engine, you get left with 3 lovely vampires that you can try and kit bash and modify and customize to put them onto horses. So I did that with one of the ladies from the Mortis Engine kit. I put that onto a Black Knight steed, and that's how I've got my Vampiress on her steed as my vampire lady. So yeah, there's lots of extra bits you get in the Mortis Engine kit that can be good. So to be honest, the Mortis Engine, the Start Collecting Malignant kit can be a good option. I would say you want to go more Start Collecting Skeleton Horde, but you don't have to, just because if you really want to get into Legions of Nagash, and you're like me and I keep on saying the narrative and stuff, you're going to want Mortark. They're very cool models, all that sort of thing, but the Start Collecting Malignant box could be a good expansion to the army once you build up the good skeleton base to it. So there's that. Now, if you're thinking about going for a more Soul-Blight themed Legions of Nagash army, so I don't know, let's say you're doing Legions of Blood or you're doing Legions of Night, for example, a good option could be going for the Flesh Eater Court Start Collector box, and that might seem a bit weird, but that's because in that box you get your Vampire Lord and Zombie Dragon, your because that's what you can make out of it. It looks like it's just a Ghoul King on Terrorgeist on the front of the box, but as I explained the other week, you can make a Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon out of it. You get 3 Crypt Horrors, but they can be turned into Vargeists that can be used, in Legions of Nagash army, and they can be pretty good. They're sort of a step down from Morghast, really. But, you can turn them into that, and then 10 Crypt Ghouls, you'll end up collecting a Flesh Eater Court army like everyone else does eventually. So they'll have a use there, or basing on whatever you want to do. So that just shows like 1 unit out of that Start Collecting Flesh Eater Court army, box, wouldn't really get used, but you can make 3 Vargeists and you can make a Vampire Lord and Zombie Dragon out of that box, which already is a saving. So there's different ways you can do this. Like I say, you generally want to go for a Death Rattle theme, but there's loads of different boxes you can get to expand your army or build upon it or take different directions with it, and it really is going to depend with what Legion you want to go with. Like I say, in the future I might do further videos on breaking down how to collect a certain legion, what ones you want to, what models you want to buy to enhance it. But I think that'll wait for a while because I have actually done reviews on the different Legions of Nagash before when the book came out, so you're more than welcome to go back to those as well, and really sort of give you a better idea about each of these legions, which I've already done those videos. So like I say, check them out if you are interested in that, and it will give you a better idea. So yeah, that's pretty much it. What I'm going to do for this video. It has gone on for an extraordinarily long time now. I didn't plan for it to go on for this long. If I'm honest, this video, it's incredibly much longer than my start, how to start a Flesh Eater Court video, and I think that's because basically I've had more time to do this video and I've enjoyed making it longer. Hopefully you guys enjoy it being a bit longer as well, so I can go down a bit more detail, like I was really breaking down different battle lines here and stuff. But this is just generally quite a vague picture of how to start Legions of Nagash. There's no right or wrong way to start it. It's how you want to start it yourself, but I just wanted to give you just advice really from my own personal experience. I always say, you take my advice how you like. You might find it wrong, you might not agree with it, but if you do agree with it, that's great. You got any questions about it, let me know in the comments, because what I really want to do, guys, is try and help you out, particularly if you're new to this and it can seem a bit confusing, just to give you a bit of a steer towards what might be a good way for you to start this army. But without a doubt, the best way to start is with the Legions of Nagash Battle Tome, and then, like I say, the Battle Force box and the Start Collecting box are going to be your two best bets here. So yeah, that is where I am going to end the video, guys. So as always, I do thank you very much for watching this video. If you have enjoyed it, please like, subscribe and comment down below. In this video, I am aware I have done quite a bit of referencing to previous videos I've done, and that's nothing wrong with that. I just, as this video has basically gone for quite a while, I didn't want to go too much in depth about each individual unit I've talked about, so that's why I'm just saying you can check out my previous videos if you want to have a little bit of a well, you want to hear a little bit of a deeper discussion of me talking about them. So that's all that was for. But like I say, guys, this might be the only video I can make this week, as I've got a pretty busy weekend coming up, and I'm working next weekend as well, so it's going to be hard to try and do another video next week. But I see what I can do with the time I've got, guys. If I can, rest assured I will do one, as I like to always try and get one video out a week, as I think that is a nice rate and I really want to try and stick to that. But I can only do what I can do, and I want to thank you guys all very so much. As I have noticed, I have got 500 subscribers now, which is, in all honesty, guys, is so much more than I thought I would ever have. When I first started this channel, I was over the moon when I got my first subscriber, and I was really happy that someone found my my videos and my advice I was giving useful, and they enjoyed the videos. That meant so much to me. And as more and more of you guys have subscribed and more of you guys have commented on my videos, it really does show that making these videos really is worth it, and I'm very glad I can, even if it's just slightly and tiny, I'm really happy I can help our community out and provide content for you guys. And like I say, I'm really humbled that you guys enjoy my content. So yeah, that's a bit of a milestone, and like I say, I thank you guys very much for that. It means so much to me. And like I say, with work at the moment, and I say at the moment, I mean, and the past 5 months as well, it's been so hard to try and fit in making these videos, but you guys have always proved to me that it's always worth making them every time. So with that, that's a special thank you to every single one of you. And again, like I always say, if you've enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe and comment down below. Let me know your thoughts, and if there's any other videos you'd like me to make, let me know down below. And yeah, as always, guys, thank you very much for watching this video, and remember, Nagash is all, and all is one in Nagash.